Welcome to the Impact Multiplier CEO podcast. If you're a chief executive, or if you think like one, and you want to create exponentially greater impact, then this show is for you. My name is Richard Medcalf, founder of Xquadrant. I coach some of the most successful and impressive CEOs and executive teams on the planet and help them achieve extraordinary results. And no matter how successful you've been in the past, there's always a whole new level of impact available to you. So, if you're ready to play a bigger game than ever before, I invite you to join us and become an Impact Multiplier CEO. In today's episode, I speak with John Maynard, who is the Chief Executive of Adarma Security. John's had a fantastic career in some huge blue chip tech organizations such as Hewlett-Packard and Cisco. And he then made the shift from that corporate world into running a relatively small, 300 people or so, highly growing business in the cybersecurity area. And this conversation, we get into that shift. What did it look like? What was the learnings as he made the shift from the Fortune 100 companies into the small and medium-sized business and taking on the CEO role? We look at the thing that helped him prioritize his time between the different stakeholder groups, and especially the stakeholders he overlooked and didn't spend quite enough time with during his first few months. And we also talk about the employer value proposition in the tech market, especially the cybersecurity market. Talent is rare and sought after. And so thinking about how, as an employer, do you build a culture, do you build a value proposition that distinguishes you in the market? It's really important. So enjoy this conversation with John Maynard, the CEO of Adarma Security. Hi, John, and welcome to the show.
Richard, thanks for having me.
Hey, it's a pleasure to have you, John. I know that we're both ex-Cisco alumni, so I know we've just talked a little bit about that. But now you are a CEO, Chief Executive of Adarma Security, which looks like it's a really interesting, high-growth cybersecurity company. So why don't you perhaps just start by telling us just very quickly, what is Adarma? Just what's its rough size and what's happening in it, and what attracted you into that company given your previous roles?
Yeah, sure. Hey, I'm very happy to do so. So, it's actually CEO of Adarma Security for now 1 year. And Adarma Security is a UK-based provider of security consulting engineering services and managed security services. So effectively what we're doing is we're running security operations centers for large enterprises in the UK, really trying to detect and hunt for threats, cyber threats in their organizations. I left fairly large organizations, as you mentioned, Cisco being one of them, to really take the helm at Adarma Security, background in Cisco systems, global roles at Cisco, global roles at HP. And before that, for my sins, I was in investment banking at KPMG and JP Morgan. And really, this leaving big companies and big structures and, organizations that are, well-funded and well-invested to really think about how you scale and drive an organization in the cybersecurity space is what really attracted me. Really taking an organization and driving a scale-up strategy, to really take some of these offerings and capabilities, not just wider in the UK, but also to expand the company internationally.
Yeah, it's really different, isn't it? Taking a company like Cisco where everything's so huge, and even if you've got a senior role, there's still a lot of other moving parts, right? And then going into that CEO role where the buck really stops with you in many ways. Very
much so, and you realize in that transition, it's definitely a roll your sleeves up type of role. You look for the cavalry sometimes when you want to get stuff done, or, you've got a strategic imperative that needs to be executed, in Cisco, or HP, bigger organizations, you've got this kind of organizational inertia, where it takes time to get stuff changed and you're moving a juggernaut, and that takes time in itself. But, you've got a team of people that will get stuff done for you. Whereas in a mid-sized small company, you look around and, it's you, or it might be, a handful of people. So it's a really different different way of leading, and it's a different style of leadership, and it's a different way of working, to be honest, as a leader.
It's not for everybody. I came across a number of people in my time who kind of said, "Oh, we're not sure we want somebody from Cisco, right, or a large company, because just what you said, we're not sure they're going to be able to cope with this kind of roll your sleeves up. You don't have all these resources. You don't have global marketing, global legal, global procurement, global whatever it is to support you. You're going to have to do it." And I think it never directly applied to me, because I was always in kind of what you might call slightly more entrepreneurial roles within Cisco that required me to roll up my sleeves anyway, in many ways. But I have heard that from multiple people, right, that it can be quite hard to make that transition. But in your case, was that actually was that a surprise? How much you had to roll up your hands, or was it something you were actively looking for?
So it's interesting, because it was a big part of the interview process with the chairman and the board of directors, and with the investor. We're private equity owned, so private equity investor. And you're absolutely spot on, right? It's very difficult to make that transition if you're not prepared, and you're not aware of the change in both in less about work ethic, but how to get the job done and how to bring a team along with you. Big matrixed organization is very, very different to a small or mid-sized company. So we kind of went into this opportunity kind of open eyes, and being very aware. I think even with that up front, it still shocked me, the amount of, and I think some of that, Richard, is maybe not having the complete team around you, right? Because the number one thing for me coming into a role like this is to build a team that can take, and that might be it's a blend of existing and maybe new people, but really to take the organization to to the next phase and to align with the strategy and direction. So you're in a new role, you're in a different environment, you're in a different size and a different structure, and there's a need to execute in the short term, right? Because expectations are you're going to come in, you're going to make a difference, and I think there's a real risk, I think, for some of the bigger leaders in bigger organizations coming into this type of environment, that you don't optimize for long-term, medium-term, building the team, driving short-term results. And that's where I see people perhaps failing in that transition, or struggling in that transition, because that's quite a complex mix of things to try and solve for.
So you're saying that people would, you mean, not deliver in the short term, they'd be too busy investing, or the other,
or they go the other way, and they
the other way, both,
focused on the short term, focused on getting in the detail, focused on making short-term impact, versus actually focusing on the long-term direction, long-term strategy, really focusing on that competitive differentiation, and that sustainable advantage that you really need in a business like this as you scale up. So it's making sure that you don't oscillate one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's interesting. We call this season the CEO Learning Curve, and I've written a short email series, actually. I think it's in the show notes even on it, around the CEO Learning Curve. I talk about 3 things that every CEO really needs to kind of get right in that curve. And number 1 is exactly what you said: is balancing the short term with the long term, because of both things, right? You can't necessarily just focus on long term, and people are waiting for this mythical future that never arrives, right? But equally, it's very, very easy to kind of get snarled into all the firefighting, all the operational stuff, and fail to actually give the company the structural clarity that it needs in order to kind of get out of its current loop, whatever that is that it's on.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And it's a very much part of my hiring my leadership team and hiring next layer below is to help people with that transition, and that might be smaller organizations where this is a bigger organization for them, and that might be an investment in their their career and their leadership capabilities, or it might be a bigger person that's used to a bigger organization going down. So it's definitely top of mind for me as I start to invest in the teams that they're helping me drive what we need to get done.
So how would you do that concretely? Like, how would you, what would be your recommendation for somebody, CEO coming in, who's looking to balance the short and the long term?
Yeah, so I think it's It's so first of all, I look for the attributes of. It's very easy to say, I want someone that can roll their sleeves up and that's used to get, that can get the job done and go into the detail if they need to or step back. But actually, getting solid examples from candidates of, it's quite easy to hide in a big company, and be a top performer, to be perfectly frank. So it's a really getting, you mentioned it at the outset of this podcast, right? Being in a smaller entrepreneurial part of a big company is very different than maybe being a big cog in a big organization. That's very much my background, emerging cybersecurity kind of parts of the organization that are trying to do things differently in a big company. That's very challenging. You're questioning the status quo. You're building new organizational designs. You're hiring different types of people. Cisco very much for me was, hardware and software to SaaS and cloud services. So that's a very different type of person. It's a different way of seeing the world. And so, there's a whole load of stuff that happens as you try and, change a big company from the inside. And so I look for, someone that can give me evidence and to talk to examples of where they've directly impacted change rather than necessarily been a recipient of change. I think that's something I look for directly.
Yeah, that's nice. Like it's a good example. So what are the biggest, so I guess we've started to get into what it looked like as you got into the role. One of the surprises being quite how much you had to roll up your sleeves, right, and do that. What were the other surprises perhaps that you encountered? What are the other things of the CEO learning curve that you came face to face with?
I'm going to say stakeholder management.
I think that's another one on my list. You're doing well. I haven't paid you, honestly.
And that's, if you're, and again, I'm going to use the difference between a big company and a small company, right? Big company, if you're in a senior role, you're used to presenting to, the executive leadership team or maybe the board, or, you've had experience of engaging with executive leadership teams. You might be part of that team. But actually when you go into a mid-sized organization and, you've maybe got one investor, two investors, you might, in my case, I've got co-founders, I've got, a whole different set of stakeholders. It can be quite, there's so much value that you can get out of those stakeholder groups coming in. There's inherent learning, there's different perspectives with different businesses. There's, there's ideas of how, your job could be easier or what we could do to help you. So actually coming in, soliciting those ideas from those key stakeholders, and the employee base is a stakeholder, the existing leadership is a key stakeholder, but I'm specifically about the investor and the board level. Just trying to harness that, get best practice, get some ideas, building those relationships, right? That board, an effective board is critical with an effective chairman and an effective executive and non-executive team. I think one thing I underestimated, Richard, to be quite honest, is the amount of time that consumes from a CEO. But it's absolutely valuable time, and it's time well spent. But it's this, this focus on, I've got to run the business, I've got to change the business, I've got to manage the stakeholders, and I've got to effectively build the strategy and the vision whilst also executing in the short term. That whole sequencing and how you start to think about, when you're in the chair, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and this is the plan for the first 6 months. Don't overlook the stakeholder management and make sure that you give it the investment that it needs. I think is probably one of the big learnings that I have.
Yeah, it's I often ask my clients something like, what's the one phone call that you need to make that's going to change everything at the moment? Because often we get doing so many operational things, there's like one conversation that would actually make the biggest impact, right? Or one decision to take.
I think that's a great way. That's a great way of looking at it, right? Because the biggest thing for a CEO or a leader, time is scarce, and making sure that time is put to the biggest effectiveness is absolutely critical. You can find yourselves being dragged into the weeds, to be honest, and dragged into things that you probably shouldn't be doing. So being very cognizant of, is this the best use of my time? And constantly asking yourselves that question is really, really, really critical.
I mean, another one which you might like to play with yourself is talked about running the business. And obviously, in one level, the CEO's role is to run the business, but you could say that your job is to run the business of running the business, which is
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? How my job is to almost make myself redundant, to be quite honest. If I can build the team underneath me, set the strategy, set the vision, set the direction, but actually build the team that can execute without me, that's effectively what my job is.
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard, I think, especially because most people get used to, as you're going up in the organization, there's a moment when you're like this high performer and everyone depends on you and relies on you, and it's quite a good feeling. But I think actually to go beyond, as you go higher, you actually have to become less essential in a way, because that's how you get out of being a bottleneck and how you.
And that's that. I think certainly over the last 12 months, I fight that every day in myself, my own psyche. I've had different. I've been very fortunate to have different levels of experience and different functional roles, from sales, from product management, strategy to operations. And that's great, certainly for a CEO role, because you can see the 360 picture and you've had experience in the majority of the functions that you're now in driving the leadership of. But also there's a risk that you dive in too much and and actually you should be stepping back. It doesn't mean you shouldn't inspect, and but actually resisting the urge to dive top down on a lot of these things. You really got to make sure that you empower the team and let the team execute.
Yeah, I read an article actually, it reminds me, called about CEO decisions, and saying that actually, what decisions should a CEO be making? And obviously the first one is, well, you can't do anything that's functional because you've got a functional team for that, right? The second one is you can't do anything that's cross-functional, because otherwise you're becoming the referee, an arbiter between two members of your team. You want to get them figuring it out together, right? Rather than you being the arbiter. And so when you start to kind of eliminate all these other things, you go, well, what is it actually? And it becomes around vision, leadership, culture, making sure that, the executive team, there's investors, there's a certain number of areas, but it's not necessarily where most CEOs actually spend all their time, which is quite interesting.
That's exactly it. And it's getting attuned to that mentality and all of that is trust as well, right? As a new executive coming into an organization, trusting the team around you to be able to deliver and to execute. That's not immediate, and actually that takes some time, but that's the function of a whole high performing team, right? That you can trust, give a direction, go execute and hold accountability. That's and to your point, right? Make yourself irrelevant in a way. Let step back, remove obstacles, but let the team execute.
Yeah, exactly. So, really interesting discussion. You talked around the time requirement around managing the stakeholders and the board. What would your rule of thumb be? If you were to say to a new CEO, look, you need to reserve this many days a week or hours a week, what would your rule of thumb be just for them to plan their diary?
Yeah, it's when I was at Cisco or HP, there's a real, and it still holds here, right? There's a real risk of becoming too internal, and not spending enough time with stakeholders, with customers, with partners. So I've always kind of driven myself, a third is really how I see it. A third I want to spend with customers, a third I want to spend with partners or your ecosystem, and a third you should be spending internally. I think it depends a little bit on the stage of maturity or the stage of transformation or what you're trying to drive in the organization you're in.
Yeah.
But trying to balance and being very conscious, like, am I spending enough time internally? Am I spending enough time externally? Is my external relationships to the organization, am I managing the investor base, talking to the investors, both existing and future? Am I talking to customers, both existing and prospects? Am I talking to partners, both existing and potential? being able to kind of slice and dice yourself and make sure that you're spending your time, and then week by week, it might oscillate and you might spend more on one or more on the other. But, we're on a monthly board cycle. So we spend, a fair degree of time as a board and with our investors, given the amount of investment that we're making in transforming the business. So we spend, a formal time once a month. That's typically half a day to a day, depending on what's on the agenda. But we would have probably an update board meeting, maybe an hour or 2 hours every in between that, if we needed it. But I think what is really valuable are the informal, just pick up the phone and have a chat with the investor, pick up the phone, have a chat with the chairman. Those types of time out the diary are always well spent.
It's Richard here with a quick interlude. As part of my coaching and advisory work, I often work with leaders who have recently taken on the CEO role. It's a big leap from the comfort zone of functional leadership or business unit management. And it opens up a whole new set of stakeholders, pressures, decisions, and responsibilities. I found that there are 3 key things that will make a huge difference in those first quarters. Number 1, balancing the operational and the strategic, what I call CEO focus. Number 2, establishing credibility, what I call CEO presence. And number 3, managing stakeholders, those CEO conversations. I've written a short email series that goes into more detail on the transition to CEO and how you can practically sharpen your CEO focus, solidify your CEO presence, and master your CEO conversations. It's insightful and it's entirely free of charge, and you can register for it by going to xquadrant.com/go/curve. Now, back to the conversation. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I mean, balancing the formal and the informal, the structured and the planned it's always a balancing act, because you can put in too much or too little structure. So it's a great one. Hey, I know time's moving on. I wanted to talk to you about the transformation. You mentioned you've been transforming the business, and I know that you came in during this pandemic season where there's been a lot of moving to remote work and hybrid work. We had a lot of people talk about literally arriving in the business as lockdown happened or whatever, but that wasn't your case, right? You were kind of coming in but there was a lot of telework, remote working, and a lot of hybrid work, and people having to still adapt to these new ways. Yeah, what's your learning been from that about trying to transform a business where people are still getting used to how they actually do their work?
Yeah, so, Richard, it's a great question, because it's it's almost we're in the kind of the testament of our time, right, around some of the transformation that we've seen in the technology space, and the move to remote working, what that's driven from an industry perspective, but also from an employee expectation perspective in terms of what the future of work should look like. So I was a COVID lockdown employee myself. So I joined the company, in a work from home state. We pretty much had the offices closed for the first 8-9 months of my tenure.
Right.
We opened up a little bit, got the team together, managed to get some face-to-face time with the company, but then now we're obviously in a work from home state now. And one of the things when you're driving change and transformation is clarity of communication, cadence and transparency of communication, and driving engagement of teams and employees as you make some difficult decisions, and you might disrupt structures that have been around for some time. You've got to try and get buy-in from teams and individuals. At a time when whether people call it the Great Resignation, or people moving around and changing and reconsidering what they want to do as individuals, it's extremely challenging, right? So we've been trying to focus on the employer value proposition here at Adarma. So what do we really want to stand for? How do we differentiate ourselves? How do we accommodate and actually drive hybrid working or work from home as a core tenant to our strategy. We actually did open new offices during COVID. We went the other way, and what we did is we opened an extremely collaborative space, where people can come, they can socialize, they can, more of a brainstorming kind of place rather than what you would typically associate with an office. Again, very, very well received. Just a testament to the fact that the workplace is changing, to be honest. But I think, that employee engagement, communication, transparency, you've got to make sure that as an incoming executive team that you're not in an ivory tower. And it's very hard, that there's no water cooler kind of conversations. You don't pick up the informal, everything is scheduled via a Zoom call or a Teams call, or, your platform of choice. You definitely miss out on those types of conversations. So you have to try and find another way to do it.
Yeah, it's requires a lot of intentionality, right, to do that, and also I think some different structures, because you said the random aspect is not really there anymore. So you have to kind of try to do interesting other ways, but it's have you, what would you say has been your success there? What have you been able to do that you looking, I know it's a complicated thing, right, and it's moving, but what's something which you're kind of quite happy that you managed to institute?
Yeah, so it's a clear expectations, I think, on what the office is nowadays, and opening the new office was a signal that, that we don't need people in 4 or 5 days a week. We do have people that, client commitments, or they might work rotations or shifts where, there are client expectations for some of this, but again, that's changing as well. So, just that, communicating that we're all going through this is new to all of us, and actually we, accommodating, a hybrid model. If you want to work from home and that's your preferred location, then that's fine. I think we see a lot of people that want to spend time in the office and to collaborate physically as well. So we want to be able to do that. And just being, I think being very conscious that whilst, productivity and, sustainability and security, we got through it in the short term. It's been tough on people's well-being. It's been tough on, I think the relationship with a company, becomes a bit more transactional in terms of your relationship with your employer. So trying to make it and trying to drive, development, training, career signposting on where people can go here at Adarma, and give them clarity on their pathways. And just being very clear that, we're all going through the same, and it takes time to transition. That's something that's worked, but certainly, we've amplified our communication, and that's, with regular town halls. That's, how we communicate. We want to communicate, through videos, through short podcasts that we might issue to the organization. People don't want to sit here maybe and listen at their desk. They spend a lot of time at their desk. They might want to listen to it on a bike or on a run, or, that's fine too.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. I think often actually video, as you know, when we were at Cisco, video was the thing, because it was, driving a lot, and it's great. You love video, right? But it's like sometimes you just want to be able to stick some earbuds in or whatever and go for your run, and not have to be stuck to a screen again just to watch a speaking head. So it's a good point. Hey, let's go. I'm just aware of time, so let's perhaps move into a little quick fire question round. Just, it's always interesting to kind of get a few thoughts on some of these topics. So what's a favorite quote that you in your leadership?
So it's one that actually I keep referring to, keep thinking about, right? Anyone can hold the helm when the sea is calm. And I think, it just really resonates with me, given what we're trying to change and what we're trying to do. I think you see it with politicians around the world, with what we're dealing with. You see the best of people, and you also see the challenges that people have as a leader. When the sea is not calm. So I keep looking back and saying, okay, that's why I'm in the role.
Yeah, I like it. I'm smiling because it reminds me of yeah, I always used to say to myself, anyone can ski a black run on a sunny day or whatever. It's like,
Yes.
it's when the clouds come in that everyone starts falling over and cursing themselves.
Yes, yes.
Um, Actually, I'll give a bonus quote as well, which was my father was a business owner as well, and he had a great quote. He had a sales background, and his quote was, "Any fool can give it away," which I think for anyone in sales is a great one.
Yeah, that's a great one.
So anyone can hold the helm when the sea is calm. What about a favorite app? What's the app you go to on the phone that's favorite app that might be a bit unusual?
Oh, it's I've got to be honest, I'm a bit of a news junkie. So I have multiple news applications, newspapers, and news aggregators. So I'm not one that scrolls social media necessarily. I do like LinkedIn. I've got to be honest. I think it's a great platform for networking and staying in contact with people. But I have far too many news applications and subscriptions, and I tend to oscillate between those applications, to be honest.
Got it. Perfect. How about a book that's really influenced you professionally?
So there's one actually. It really stands out to me, and it's by I lived in the US for 5 years in California, and I part of it was I got into CrossFit and I got into exercising and things like that. But it's also kind of where I shaped some of my leadership aspects. And it's a book by an ex SEAL Team 3 commander who was in Iraq and commanded a number of teams during that period. And it's a guy called Jocko Willink, and it's called Extreme Ownership. And it's one of those books. I've read a number of leadership books, and and actually I'll refer to another one which is really good. But this one, he uses his experience, commanding these troops as part of SEAL Team 3, and turns it into how you can apply it from a business application perspective. So this concept of extreme ownership and extreme accountability, very much as a CEO, the buck stops with you, right? As you said, just because things weren't perfect or the world changed doesn't matter. You're still accountable, right? And so lots of concept. I won't go through the principles, but like cover and move. There's a great reference to decentralized command, which is what we were talking about, right? Build the team, set the direction, let them execute and get out of the way. Decentralized command is effectively, his militarization term for that. Some really good principles and really good stories behind it, and that they really, because when I start to think about leadership principle, I always refer back to that book and think, cover and move. I get that. Protect the team.
Got it. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'll check that one out. I've heard of it. I haven't read it. So
yeah, really good. And then there's another one. Just I did an MBA. Back a few years ago, and so you go back, Harvard Business Reviews and all that sort of stuff. One of the co-founders at Adarma introduced me to a book called The Age of Competitive Advantage, and it's really effectively, we all work about, okay, we need to build sustained competitive advantage, and then we need to execute, and we need to extract the economic benefit of having that sustained advantage. This book is about effectively the competitive advantage is transitionary and transitory, and so what you're looking to is to try and capture these transitions and be very agile. Don't build up loads of assets because you have to disengage to catch the next wave. It's almost like waves of advantage that you should be thinking of, and it's really interesting. It's how we're now thinking more about, okay, these are short-term transitions, and how you organize and how you set up, and making sure you don't burden the organization with too much process or too many assets, in one specific advantage area. I just think it's a very interesting way of thinking versus what you kind of typically get taught at business school.
Yeah, nice. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
It's quite a simple one, really. Don't overthink it. I left university way back when. I wanted to be an investment banker. That's all I wanted to do. It's very strange, but unfortunately, that was the way my mind was wired. That's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it for the rest of the life. Things change. Met my wife. Wanted to be an entrepreneur and be a change agent rather than necessarily buying and selling businesses. but I always wanted to be a COO or a CEO. And, I think, I had that long-term direction that's where I wanted to go, but, saying yes to opportunity when it arises, I've managed to work in Asia, I've managed to work in the US, I've worked in different functional roles, and just saying yes to opportunity. And if you've got that kind of, that's where I want to go, and, the path can meander a little bit, that's fine. So I think don't overthink it and say yes to opportunity.
Perfect. What about, who do you admire? Who's an impactful CEO that's perhaps made a difference in your life, who would be a good guest for the show?
So there's kind of two that I really admire. They're big company CEOs. So one is Microsoft, Natalia, and that's around, massive turnaround, massive, just phenomenal, in terms of strategy, direction, capturing opportunity, and changing a large organization. As an individual, Brian Humphreys is the CEO of Cognizant. I think he's doing a fantastic job of changing and transforming, Cognizant as an organization, which is, it's a high performing organization. And then, closer to home, there's an individual who I've been working with, who I went to business school with, who took the big jump, while we were at business school, left a big networking organization, not the same one, and really, launched a fintech and built software as a startup. It's a guy called Ian Mitra here in the UK, a company called Code. Someone like that, really, he took the bull by the horns and really just went for it. And I think, I'd say the same about, a number of individuals that, believe in what they can do, step into uncertainty and trust yourself to execute, to be honest.
Yeah, it's inspiring, isn't it, when people believe in themselves and go for it, right, and drive it through, I guess. Yeah. Hey, thank you for these. This is great. I guess my final question is really, no matter how far we've got, there's always the next level. And so, what's the next? As you continue to transform this business at Adarma and get the growth that you've come in to generate, what are you going to need to personally do differently to multiply your own impact?
Oh, you saved that very hard question to last, Richard.
Oh, yes. Yeah. There's always the next level, right? What do you feel that is for you?
I mean, the next level for me and for our business is, we want to kind of expand our expertise. We're building frankly, a next generation portfolio in cybersecurity. So, a lot of what we're going to be doing is technical leadership and software development, and for a services organization to move to software development, it's a cultural change, and that require expertise and different types of leadership and individuals. We also want to internationalize the business, so that might be organically, plus also investments in M&A. And it just means that, I constantly need to be stepping back a bit more and being able to focus on those types of things that will create shareholder value and stakeholder value. And that just means more and more that the team have to execute and allow me to step back to be able to do some of the other things that, really a CEO is the only role that can do, right? To focus on those kind of investment, M&A, strategic aspects of what we want to do to transform the business.
Perfect, really clear. Hey, John, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you. If people want to find out a bit more about you or about Adarma, how do they get in touch?
Yeah, perfect. Have a look at www.adarma.com. There's a contact us page. Ping us a note and we'll get straight back in touch. Perfect. Well, hey, John, it's been a real pleasure. I've loved speaking, understanding a bit about this CEO learning curve you've been on, and the really interesting things we've been talking about letting go, about remote work, about stakeholder management, finding this link between the short term and the long term. I think some really helpful insights. So thanks once again for that. Perfect, Richard. And, thank you very much for having me. Take care. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Now let's talk about you. When you're in top leadership, when you're in the biggest role of your career, who supports you at a deep level as you lead others? Who helps you multiply your impact and get to the next level?
If you're ready to learn more about our content, our coaching, and our community, then visit us at xquadrant.com.